Hi there, welcome to No Nonsense Whisky. My name's VinPF and on today's episode we're covering the latest release from Kingsbarns. Now, I said at the top of the show I'm grateful enough to have been sent this straight from Kingsbarns. In fact, they didn't even ask, they just sent it through, so it wasn't even one of those ones where do you want it or not. It was like I got a knock on my door and there it was. Didn't even know what it was, didn't know it was coming out. I'm really bad at keeping up with whisky news. I've got so many emails coming in from all different kind of like news outlets, whatever, so I don't tend to read many of them. So I didn't know this was coming out, but obviously when I got the bottle I started looking into it. Now this one here, if you're watching this on day of release, it only came out this week. It came out on the Monday, July 1st. So this is brand new, which is awesome. You know, I'm lucky enough to get a couple of bottles here and there where they are brand new. It doesn't always happen. So to be able to bring this out to you now, to hopefully you're interested, because it's a really fascinating addition to their core range. Yeah, let's get into it. So we've got this Kingsbarns Coaltown. Now it's named after a town. I'm not really here to talk about that per se. You know me, I'm not really into the kind of like stories behind the namings of things. For me, it's all about liquid, glass, experience, price. Maybe I should use that as a tagline. That's the first time I've ever said that. But yeah, essentially what we've got here is the first foray from Kingsbarns into a kind of peated element. Especially core range, you know. So now we've got the three core ranges. You've got the Ducat, which replaced the original Dream to Dram last year. You've got the Balcomie, which is the sherry cask matured, and now we've got the Coaltown, which is exclusively ex-peated cask. It says on here. So what I imagine, I don't know this for sure, what I imagine is this is an ex-bourbon cask that has had peated whiskey in it and now has this. It's an undetermined amount of years, although not that many, I imagine. 46%. It's non-chill filtered, natural colour, which we'll go into in a bit. But the real kicker of this is the price, which is £46. So it's the same as the Ducat and a little bit less than the Balcomie. And again, we'll talk about price a little bit later after the tasting. But yeah, as I think you'll agree, a bit of a fascinating bottle. Cynical hat on, it seems to me, before I even opened it seemed a little bit odd that Kingsbarns were heading down the peated route, because their liquid is obviously Lowlands, but it's very light and fruity and tropical. Traditionally quite STR, shaved toasted, recharred influenced, although they're, as shown by their core range, they're moving away from STR quite a bit, I think. The original Dream to Dram was pretty much exclusively STR, if I remember, but now it's ex-bourbon and STR, which was, I think the Ducat's better, to be honest. The Balcomie I've not actually tried, so I don't know for sure. But all of their single casks have been sort of slowly moving away from STR and whatnot. This has got none of it in whatsoever, because I think that would kind of defeat the point of it, I think. But yeah, cynical hat. They've probably been visited a lot. You know, where they are in the world, they're right next to St Andrews, which is a huge golfing community. You know, and it's basically been built because people were touristy to the area and had nowhere to go for whiskey, like a distillery, a proper distillery. That's changed now. There's quite a few in the area, but yeah, they I don't know this for sure, but I'm guessing that they were probably somewhat pressured, gratefully so, to put a peated whiskey out there. But that's my cynical hat on. We'll get into the actual tasting and see if it works or not, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we don't often talk about colour, but we can in this. This is where we start talking to the real bonuses of this thing. I mean, this is really light. You know, it's almost like straw or a very, very light white wine. And that's, for me, that's plus point number one. You know, this is natural colour. They didn't have to do that. You know, it's part of their ethos for sure. But what I'm saying is that they, you know, if they were really trying to appeal to people that didn't know anything about whiskey, they could have added some colour to it and made it, you know, look more appealing to those sorts of people. But for people like me, I don't care what colour it is. You know, if it says natural colour on the label, which it does, then I'm super happy. So yeah, let's get onto the nose then and see what we got. Now for me, obviously as a big fan of peated whiskey, this is it's a bit of a funny one because it's kind of like it's light and not at the same time. It's got quite heavy, robust, smoky elements to it, but delivered in a kind of light and floral way. So for me, I'm getting a lot of barbecue smoke, a bit of grilled salmon, then some sweeter elements like kind of butterscotch, that sort of thing. It's nice. It's much more It's much more briny than Kingsbarns generally comes across as, of course. So I imagine that's all being picked up by the cask. Let's get onto the palate. Yeah, it's got, I mean, this is where the real peat comes through. If you're quick, there's a very, very, very slight bit of tropical fruits on the front end. Then it kind of, the sweetness disappears off to bring the smoky stuff back in. But instead of all that sort of barbecue smoke, now we're getting onto the more ashen and tannic side of smokiness. This is why I said it delivers it in different ways, because you've got a really nice kind of like sweet and sour on the nose, and on the palate you've got sweet, then sour, and then weirdly sweet again. So rather than it being all intermingled, you've got phases of the palate, for me anyway. So yeah, tropical fruits at the start, bit of tannic smoke, a bit of kind of ashen smoke. The back end, you get a little bit more of that vanilla coming through, and then it's a big dollop of spiciness on the back end. Now for me, I've likened it to sort of like cayenne pepper spice, but I don't want that to make it sound like it's hot or uncomfortable in any way. It's just, saying peppery spiciness didn't really do it justice for me. It was it's ratcheted up just a little bit. So, finish is, yeah, it's not overly long, probably, short to medium, I would say. A lot of the sweetness has gone by then, but the smokiness still sticks around, which I quite like. Bit of a clinger. Okay, so thoughts then. Personally, I really enjoy this. There's a lot to like about it, because what they could have done, here's what they could have done. They could have, made some fancy casks out of it, and they could have aged it for a bit longer, made the colour a bit different, and they could have brought this out at sort of 55, 60 quid. In fact, when I first started tasting this, I didn't know what the price was going to be. Like I said, I had no communication whatsoever that it was coming. So I didn't know what it was, how much it was going to be. Could have asked, I suppose, but I was guessing that this was going to be £50 to £55. Obviously 55 would have been a bit much, I think, but that was my kind of window. So when it was released and it was £46, I've got no complaints. No complaints whatsoever. It fits perfectly into their core range. The only thing I would say is that as a big fan of Kingsbarns, and if you are a big fan of Kingsbarns, the peat does overshadow the distillate a little bit. So if you absolutely love their kind of core tropical flavours, if you're a massive fan of their STR releases, this is wildly different to anything else they've released so far. Wildly different, to the point where I think a Ducat or even their Dream to Dram, if you got to try that in a blind tasting, I feel like it would stand out somewhat. Whereas this one here, you got absolutely no chance. This could be Kalila, could be Ardmore, any of these kind of like, lighter peated things. It could be any of that, anywhere. And that was kind of, it sounds like a criticism, but when I was first trying this, I thought to myself, genuinely, it could literally be anywhere. But it's not, it's Kingsbarns. So, and I find that interesting. But yeah, it's cheap enough to give a go. I feel like if you're a fan of Kingsbarns, you might have already bought this already. I don't think you'll be disappointed in it, especially if you're a Kingsbarns and a peated whiskey fan. More power to them. They could have done this completely differently. They could have made it a bit of a money spinner. Of course, they're going to be making money off of it. Whiskey's a money-making business. But I think they've done it really well. But yeah, anyway, let me know what you think below. If you've tried this, if you're going to try it, if it's a pass, if it's a purchase or whatever, let me know in the comments below. We'll have a little chat about it. Cheers.